Hello, everyone. This is the 98th episode of the Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. As always, this is Sean from Los Angeles and the Soccer Nostalgia blog. Unfortunately, Mr. Paul Whittle from the 1888 letter blog could not make it. He'll be back for the following podcast. For this episode, I interview Spanish author and historian Mr. Sergio Vilariño Ferreiro as we discuss the matches of the Spanish national team during the 1983-84 season. Mr. Vilariño is the author of the book about the 1970 World Cup in Mexico called México 50 años de fútbol en color. Welcome, Sergio. It's been a while.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So let's go back to the fall of 1983. What was the state of the Spanish national team around this time?
Well, we can say that we were still in a continuation of what we already explained in the podcast about the 82-83 season. Spain was in the middle of a transition at every level of life, and football was not the exception. The two main clubs, that's it, Madrid and Barcelona, right, were not in their best moment. The Basque teams were the dominant ones in La Liga. We know that Real Sociedad won the titles in 81 and 82. Athletic Bilbao won in 83 and were on their way to a second consecutive title. The football they play was an English style football, very physical and direct, and that had an influence on the national team, especially regarding the squad that went to the World Cup. The failure of this campaign provoked a change of mentality for the national team and a change of the guard, as we saw during the 82-83 season. On top of that, the attacks on President Porta, the president of the federation, right, kept growing, and the atmosphere in the federation was terrible. He would leave his role by the end of the season due to a law that banned him from running for a fourth consecutive mandate. In terms of the actual national team, the biggest concern was related with Miguel Muñoz, the coach, because he had a car accident during the summer. While overtaking a lorry, he crashed against another one, and the consequences were very concerning. He sustained multiple fractures, and it was going to take a lot of time to recover. And he was just very lucky to survive the accident. While he was out of the picture, his assistants Miera and Moreno kept working with a group of around 32 players who were available for the Olympic, the under-21s, and the first team rosters. This way, those players were interchangeable in case of necessity, because Spain was dealing with the qualifiers for Euro 84, the under-21 European Championships, and the Olympic Games in Los Angeles.
The crucial match was to be against Holland in November.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, how was this encounter viewed, with optimism or pessimism?
I think the game against Holland was saw at that moment seen at that moment as the decisive one, and Holland was in a very similar situation to Spain, because they were in the middle of the change of a generation, right? Some of the members of the great Dutch squad in the 70s were still part of the team, such as Ruud Krol or Johnny Rep. And at the same time, we have members of this new generation with Ruud Gullit and Ronald Koeman and eventually Marco van Basten, who are just coming through the ranks, and they were, basically making their international debuts. They were a good team, right? And on top of that, the Dutch had won the game in Ireland, which was not expected, right? Especially because they did it by coming from behind, and Muñoz, who was present in the game, declared that he did not understand what happened, that the Irish had practically given up without the fight. So the situation, due to this result, it was very favorable for the Netherlands. The Netherlands now had a better goal difference. They had a +10, while Spain had a +6 at the moment. And basically, if they were able to beat Malta, they would virtually seal their qualification for the Euros in case of beating Spain in Rotterdam.
So the season starts with a friendly at Paris against the Euro hosts France. And coincidentally, the season would also end at the same venue against the same opponent.
Yep.
So on October 5th, France hosts Spain. And this is the France of Michel Platini, amongst others. But on that day, France had many injuries. It's fair to say it was not the best French team available. And it was more of a ceremony to celebrate Marius Trésor's record-breaking appearance for France. But as far as Spain, Miguel Munoz also experimented and gave a number of new caps in this match. So for Spain, we have Luis Arconada of Real Sociedad in goal, the captain of the team. International debutant Nimo of Sevilla. This will be his only cap. He'd be replaced by another new cap, Salva of Zaragoza, in the 65th minute. We have Andoni Goicoechea of Bilbao. He'd be replaced by Quique Ramos of Atletico Madrid in the 46th minute. And we have to point out that this match was played shortly after Goicoechea had severely injured Diego Maradona. And we all know he earned the nickname the Butcher of Bilbao. And at this point, I think he was suspended in the league, but not from the national team.
Yeah.
So then we have Antonio Maceda of Sporting Gijón, Camacho of Real Madrid, international debutant Gary of Zaragoza, Juan Senor of Zaragoza, Gordillo of Betis, Carrasco of Barcelona, Santillana of Real Madrid, Marcos Alonso of Barcelona. He replaced by Hipólito Rincón of Betis in the 46th minute. So this match ended as a 1-1 tie. France took the lead in the 60th minute through Dominic Rocheteau. And shortly before the end, in the 83rd minute, Senor was fouled by Butts in the box, and Senor himself took the penalty kick. And Spain earned a 1-1 tie in this match. Like I mentioned, Miguel Munoz decided to somewhat experiment in this match. How were these new choices regarded at the time?
Well, the match against France, as you said, it was going to be also the last one in this season. I don't think at this point anybody thought that what could be the final of the European Championship, especially on Spain's side. It was viewed, this game was viewed from the Spanish point of view as a dress rehearsal for the visit to the Netherlands, right? It was a close game with both teams trying new men and systems. In this game, it was obvious that, for example, Juan Senor was going to be one of the main players of the national team during this whole cycle. And Munoz used 4-3-3 with fast players such as Marcos and Carrasco on the wings and Santillana as the lone striker. And basically the same man who played at the Parc des Princes would be in the squad for the decisive match against the Orange. Munoz designed a team that could get at least a draw against the Orange, as it was a result that benefited Spain. The new additions of Nimo and Guerri, players of a somewhat low level for international competition, were almost anecdotal. Not the case for Salva, who's going to become important during this season, right? But both of them, Nimo and Guerri, started against the French. Guerri was a midfielder who was retained for the Netherlands game, while Nimo, who was a right back, was not, because he picked up an injury in this game, and he was going to be substituted by Sanchez, the Barcelona fullback, for the game against the Dutch.
So this crucial match against the Dutch took place on November 16th at Rotterdam. You mentioned some of the names in this Dutch team. We have Ruud Gullit, Willy van der Kerkhoff, Koeman, Vandenberg, Erwin Koeman, team managed by Kees Rivers. For Spain, we have the following lineup: Arconada, Sanchez of Barcelona, Maceda, Goicoechea, Camacho, Gallego of Real Madrid, Senior, Gordillo, Guerri, he replaced by Rincon in the 67th minute, Santillana, Carrasco, and he replaced by Marcos Alonso in the 78th minute.
Yeah.
So the Dutch took the lead in the 26th minute through Peter Houtman. Just before halftime, Spain tied the match in the 41st minute when Santillana headed in Senior's corner. However, in the second half, midway through the second half, in the 63rd minute, Ruud Gullit scored with a long-range shot, and the Dutch won this crucial match 2-1 to get the edge in terms of qualification at this point.
Yeah.
So, realistically, was there a feeling that the chance to qualify had slipped away at this point?
Well, I mean, this was probably the most important game of the whole season at that moment, at least. As we said, Munoz brought back Sanchez, who was a fullback from Barcelona, and Gallego from Real Madrid was coming back to the team again because he was injured for the game against France. The overall feeling about this group of players in Spain was that they were mediocre at best. So the feeling regarding this game was not very, very optimistic. Munoz didn't start with the 4-3-3 of Paris, but with a 4-4-2 with Carrasco and Santillana up top. And Sanchez was starting as a right back in his first game for Spain since the World Cup. The game, as you said, was somewhat close with several chances for the Spaniards, but in the end, the Dutch were superior in the midfield, where Gullit and Van de Kerkhoff dominated the pace of the game. On top of their technical abilities, I have to say that this Dutch team was pretty nasty, sometimes violent, especially Ronald Koeman, who used the elbows too often, but Mr. Vautreau allowed him to do so. Once behind the scoreboard due to this Pete Houtman goal, Spain attacked and was able to get the draw through one of Santillana's trademark headers just before halftime. At the beginning of the second half, there is a Spanish call for a penalty, but Mr. Vautreau was not there for just to help the visitors, and the Spanish already knew it. I think after this play, it was Holland the one who dominated the game, and eventually they will get the decisive goal with a good shot by Gullit. From that moment on, there was no game. It was an impressive show of gamesmanship by the Dutch, and a terrible night from the referee. It looked like France was looking really far away for the national team. And after the game, I think this defeat created the general feeling that the chances of qualification were minimal, because on top of that, the Dutch had beaten Malta 5-0, and the goal difference seemed totally unsurmountable. And on top of that, the Netherlands had a good team, still in transition, but there was a new generation that was looking good.
Spain knew that they needed 11 goals to overtake the Dutch. How did Munoz and the players present their chances, and how did the public and the press view the possibilities ahead of this match?
Well, as I said before, it looked very complicated, almost impossible. And it's true that as the day of the game got closer, the mood changed to, what if we are able to do it? But the main idea was to try to come out very strong, score 2 or 3 goals early, and hope that the Maltese would collapse. Before the game, Spain's main man, Arconada, picked up an injury and was not going to be available. But as everybody thought, the goalkeeper was not supposed to be very important in this game. There also were problems to fill the Benito Villamarin because of the date. It was close to Christmas and the terrible weather with that persistent rain. So it was difficult just to prepare for the match. The people, the press, the fans, and obviously the players were obviously aware that Malta was not a good team. They were basically amateurs. and that they had suffered big losses of big defeats during even this campaign. But the difference from 8-0 to 11-0 is a big one. It was considered that it was very difficult because if you were not able to score early, basically you didn't have time to get to that mark of 11 goals. That was the concern.
So let's get to this match on December 21st at Sevilla. As you mentioned, Arconada was injured, so Francisco Buyo of Zaragoza earned his first cap in this match, the future Real Madrid goalkeeper. So you also have Senior, Goicoechea. Camacho was captain in Arconada's absence. Victor of Barcelona, Maceda, Gordillo, Rincon. He replaced by Marcos Alonso in the 88th minute. Manuel Sarabia of Bilbao, Santillana, and Carrasco. In the first half, Spain were winning 3-1. So Santillana opened the scoring. Against all odds, Malta scored in the 24th minute through Michael Di Giorgio. But then quickly, Santillana scored twice more in the 26th and the 29th minute. And also, Senior had missed a penalty kick in the 3rd minute when he hit the post. So the odds were not looking that good as far as the first half. Then everything changed in the second half. Hipólito Rincon was on fire in the second half.
Yeah.
So he would score 4 goals. Santillana would score 1 more goal. So Santillana and Rincon had each 4 goals in this match. Maceda scored twice in successive minutes. Sarabia scored. And Senior scored the decisive goal in the 86th minute. Yeah. And Gordillo even scored in the 88th minute, but that goal was disallowed for offside. Against all odds, Spain won this match with the score that they needed, and they were through to the Euros, unbelievably.
Yeah. As I said, no, but I don't think anybody expected to be able to score 11 goals. And when we needed to score 12, it was even worse. As I said before, there were problems to fill the Benito Villamarín because of the date, because of the terrible weather. And once Santillana scored the first goal, not as fast as supposed, because we know that Senor missed a penalty just at the beginning. And then when Di Giorgio tied the game, I think the morale in the stadium reached its lowest level, right? Some people even left because the perspective of spending the next hour and something while getting soaked was not very attractive. But especially in the second half, which Spain started with a 3-1 in the scoreboard, people changed their minds. The goals, the same as the rain, continued to fall in Bonelo's net. And suddenly an influx of people started to fill the Villamarín. And by the moment Maceda scored his 2 goals, the 6th and the 7th, the stadium was almost full. And those who were there and watching TV were witnessing an historic night. It's 12-1 and on we go for France. Nobody could believe that.
Yeah. So what was the press reaction after this match?
Well, general reaction was one of total disbelief, especially because of the way the match had developed, right? The start was not as strong as it was supposed to be. The Maltese were even able to score a goal by that practically ended Paco Bullo's career in the national team. We need to remember that Bullo was playing because Arconada was injured, and after a couple of seasons, he was going to become the undisputed starter of Real Madrid with La Quinta del Buitre, but he was not going to play again. He was very his legacy was tarnished by this goal. That second half, with a Spanish team that went all out on the attack, Poli Rincon, who seemed to be the perfect finisher for the team's attacking play, Antonio Maceda being decisive in the opposing penalty area, which is like a look into a future, right? Knowing what he did in the Euros. And that goal by Senor that culminated defeat altogether became Spanish history. Even Jose Angel de la Casa, who was the main commentator for Televisión Española, he lost his composure shouting the goal and going off key when he was, such a serious and calm man. I think his reaction was a perfect representation of the whole country's reaction to the result.
Now, from a Dutch perspective, there has always been feelings of foul play. How does the Spanish press view these claims?
Well, yes, the Dutch always claim that the Maltese were bribed, and in hindsight, I think in Spain we suspect something like that. But in reality, nobody wants to put a stain on one of the most iconic nights of the national team, because that's basically it. That's what the 12-1 to Malta is, one of the highest points of the Spanish transition. We are talking about a night that is marking the history, the transition from a dictatorship to a fully developed and modern democracy. Everybody remembers where they were when Spain put 12 goals past Malta, and whenever the Dutch claim foul play, well, we just smile.
Objective had been met. Now, the new year 1984, there will be many preparation friendlies ahead of the tournament in France. So as early as January, Spain played its first friendly. On January 18th at Cadiz, they hosted Hungary and lost 1-0 when Imre Garaba scored in the 67th minute. As far as the lineup, Buyo started in goal. Sanchez, Maceda, Goicoechea, Camacho. De Andres of Bilbao earned his first cap. And we have to mention that Bilbao would win the league title that season.
Yeah.
He'd be replaced by Salva in the 58th minute. We have Senor, Gordillo, Carrasco. Carrasco would be replaced by Francisco of Sevilla in the 46th minute. Santiana, Rincon, and he'd be replaced by Sarabia in the 46th minute.
Correct.
So a few things to note. This was Spain's first match with Lecoq Sportif as the kit designer, as previously they were with Adidas. And also, this was Sanchez's 14th and final cap for Spain. His first cap had been in 1978. So, can you summarize Sanchez's career with Spain?
Yeah, Sanchez was an okay player during his years at Barcelona, but he was not really a footballer of international caliber. The fact that he was part of a World Cup squad, or his presence was relevant in the national team during qualifications, I think it says more about the low standard of Spanish football at the time than about Sanchez level. He was not a player who was going to win you a game, but he was not going to cost you a game. He was a regular player who was, a starter for Barcelona for several years. So yeah, just an okay player, but probably short of that international caliber that we are talking about.
Yes. So next, on leap year, February 29th, 1984, Spain traveled to Luxembourg for this match. I'm sure they expected an avalanche of goals. In the end, Spain only won 1-0 with Maceda scoring in the 64th minute. So
yeah,
we have Arconada back in the squad, captain of the team. Urquiaga of Bilbao, Maceda, Goicoechea, Julio Alberto of Barcelona. This was his first cap for Spain.
Yeah.
Victor, he'd replaced by Sarabia in the 46th minute. Francisco, he'd replaced by Marcos Alonso in the 46th minute. Senor, Gordillo, he'd replaced by Salva in the 65th minute. Santiana, Carrasco, and he'd replaced by Guerri in the 46th minute. This was Guerri's third and final cap for Spain. His first cap was against France early in the season.
Yeah, yeah. This game is linked with the Hungary game, right? Because once the rivals for the first round of the Euros were known, Spain started the preparation with a series of friendlies against teams like Denmark, Switzerland, Yugoslavia, Hungary, or Luxembourg, right? And for the game against the Magyars, Muñoz couldn't call up Arconada, Victor Werri, and Gallego because all of them were injured. Rincon and Francisco were already established as regulars, right? And as you said, De Andres was making his debut. The game was not great, with the Hungarians claiming the victory to that Garavas goal. And Muñoz was again accused of being too defensive, which was something that he had, the fame of being a defensive coach. And after this game, I think part of the euphoria after the Malta game kind of disappeared. So when they traveled to Luxembourg, they were expecting kind of a rehabilitation, right, of the national team. But it was a very poor victory with Arconada back in the goal, Camacho absent. We have also the return of Urquiaga, who had been absent from the national team for a while, and the debut of Julio Alberto, Barcelona's left back. There was only one goal scored, of course, by Maceda, who was already showing that he was a clutch player, but the feelings around the national team were not improving.
Next, on April 11th at Valencia, Spain hosted Denmark. This was a Denmark team that had qualified for the Euros and they had eliminated England. Most of their players now are household names. You have Soren Lerby, Alan Simonson, Espanyol Barcelona's John Lauritsen, Michael Laudrup, Preben Elker, among others, managed by Sepp Piontek, the West German.
Mm-hmm.
So for this match, we have Arconada, Urquiaga, Maceda, Goicoechea, Camacho, Victor, Francisco. He replaced by De Andres in the 83rd minute. This would be De Andres' second and final cap for Spain.
Yeah.
Senior, Gordillo. He replaced by Julio Alberto in the 88th minute. Santiana, he'd be replaced by Sarabia in the 86th minute. Rincon, and he'd be replaced by Carrasco in the 81st minute. So Denmark took the lead in the 47th minute through John Eriksson. Minutes later, in the 54th minute, Carlos Santillana tied the match. And in the 61st minute, Senior scored from a free kick from the left side. And Spain defeated Denmark. And Spain would become, from this point on, Denmark's bogey team, essentially, for the years to come.
Yeah, I think the most important thing about this game is that by this time, I think we already saw that Muñoz had his group of players and he was not going to make big changes unless an injury happened. Playing in Valencia, which brought bad memories from the World Cup, right? He deployed a 4-4-2 with Santillana and Rincon up top, which proved a combination that was able to gel really well. Spain defeated the Danes, and at this moment, I don't think a single person at the Luis Casanova in Valencia could think that these two teams were going to play in the semifinals of the Euros 3 months later. Mainly because Spain was not creative enough. I don't think the team was positive enough. It was not attacking enough, and the Danes were not at its most brilliant, if you want to call it like that, in this game. So if somebody told us that they were going to play in the semifinals, I don't think anybody would believe that.
Yes. So next, on May 26th, Spain travels to Geneva to face Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And wins 4-0. with Santillana scoring in the 14th minute, Gallego in the 26th minute, Rincon in the 35th minute, and Goicoechea in the 63rd minute.
Yeah.
And Juan Senior also misses a penalty kick in the 77th minute. So
Yeah.
for Spain, we have Arconada, Urquiaga, Maceda, Goicoechea, Camacho, Victor, Gallego, Senior, Gordillo. He'd be replaced by Julio Alberto in the 67th minute. Santillana, he'd be replaced by Carrasco in the 62nd minute. Rincon, he'd be replaced by Marcos Alonso in the 83rd minute.
Yeah, I think we can see the 11-man and formation that are going to be the most used by Muñoz during the Euros. He's not going to change the formation or the lineup that much. Also for the Hungary game, this is a brilliant victory. Probably Spain's best game during this round of friendlies. Brilliant victory, as I said, against a very poor Swiss side. I think Rincon, right, with his mobility was considered the key in the offensive game for Spain. He was becoming more and more important every game he played because he added something that nobody else in Spain was doing, which was obviously the capacity to score goals, but also to link up play up top.
A few days later, on May 31st, Spain traveled to Budapest to face Hungary again. This match ended as a 1-1 tie. Rincon scored in the 21st minute, and Antal Nagy tied the match in the 48th minute. However, Hipólito Rincon suffered a pelvic injury in this match, and that ruled him out of the Euros. So one of Spain's main scoring threats just ahead of the tournament was out from the Euros. And a young Emilio Butragueño would be called up as a replacement.
Same team as in Geneva when we played in Budapest. And the result was a tie that left a lot of doubts about the possibilities of the team in the tournament. Rincon continued with his good spell, scoring again, but as you said, he sustained an important injury and he was out of the Euros, which was shocking actually for the plans of Muñoz. As we've been saying, Poli Rincon was one of the key elements of Spain's attack and probably their most informed striker. It was a very important loss because it seemed that Muñoz had found his team and now changes would have to be made. No Spanish striker was going to offer what the Betis player could do at that moment. On top of that, in addition, right, to replace him, Muñoz called the young Butragueño, who had only made his debut 4 months earlier with the Real Madrid team. El Buitre had shown signs of his great class, but was seen as too young to play in a competition of the caliber of a European Championship.
And just going through the lineup, we have Arconada, Urquiaga, Maceda, Goicoechea, Camacho, Gallego. He replaced by Francisco in the 46th minute. Victor, Senior, Gordillo. He replaced by Julio Alberto in the 81st minute. Rincon, he'd be injured and replaced in the 41st minute by Carrasco. Santillana, he'd be replaced by Sarabia in the 69th minute.
This was as we saw, Muñoz was basically repeating the same squad, the same formation during these preparations because he already decided that those were his men. He was going to do exactly the same in the last game against the Yugoslavians, right, at La Línea de la Concepción, close to Gibraltar, right? He's going to fill his 4-4-2, but he is going to use Carrasco up front against alongside Santillana because of Rincon's injury. And in this game, we have an early goal from Safet Susic, I think in the first minute, that basically killed the game and killed Spain because Spain left with many doubts on their way to Lyon, where the national team would be based during the French summer.
Yes. This match on June 7th at La Línea de la Concepción, like you said, Safet Susic, I have on record, he scored after 36 seconds.
Yeah.
Very early.
Very early.
Yeah. Also, Victor scored a goal in the 16th minute that was ruled out. But for this last friendly before the Euros, we have Arconada, Urquiaga, Maceda, Goicoechea. He'd be replaced by Julio Alberto in the 70th minute. Camacho, Victor, Senior. He'd be replaced by Sarabia in the 66th minute. Gallego, Gordillo, Carrasco, and Santillana.
Yeah, one thing that we saw in this game was that Munoz tried several players like Julio Alberto in different positions, and this was going to be very important because of what's going to happen in the Euros with several injuries that are going to reduce his options, right? So having players who are able to play in different positions is going to become very important, because we need to remember that for this type of tournament, only 20 players were called up.
So let's look at Miguel Munoz's final 20 for the 1984 Euros. At number 1, we have starting goalkeeper and captain of the team, Luis Arconada of Real Sociedad. Number 2, Urquiaga of Bilbao. Number 3, Camacho of Real Madrid. Number 4, Maceda of Sporting Gijón. Number 5, Goicoechea of Bilbao. Number 6, Gordillo of Betis. Number 7, Senior of Zaragoza. Number 8, Victor of Barcelona. Number 9, Santillana of Real Madrid. Number 10, Gallego of Real Madrid. Number 11, Carrasco of Barcelona. Number 12, Salva of Zaragoza. Number 13, backup goalkeeper Buyo of Sevilla. Number 14, Julio Alberto of Barcelona. Number 15, Roberto of Valencia. Number 16, Francisco of Sevilla. Number 17, Marcos Alonso of Barcelona. Number 18, Emilio Butragueño of Real Madrid, replacing the injured Hipólito Rincón. Number 19, Sarabia of Bilbao. And number 20, third goalkeeper, Andoni Zubizarreta of Bilbao.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds weird to me, at least, to take 3 goalkeepers in a list of 20, but I also think that Munoz was just not interested in adding any extra player. He had his group already decided, and he was going to juggle with names and players whatever he may need them.
So the Euros started for Spain on June 14th against Romania. Spain were in a group with Romania, Portugal, and West Germany. And obviously, West Germany were seen as the favorites to win the group. So on June 14th at Saint Etienne, Spain faced Romania. This is a growing Romanian team that had eliminated Italy to qualify for the Euros.
Yes.
For this match, we have Arconada, Urquiaga, Maceda, Goicoechea, Camacho, Victor, Senior, Gordillo, Gallego. He'd be replaced by Julio Alberto in the 72nd minute, Santillana, and Carrasco. So Spain took the lead in the 22nd minute. The Romanian goalkeeper Lung fouled Gallego in the box, and Carrasco scored from a penalty kick. I guess after Senior had missed a couple, they decided to give the duties to Carrasco.
Yeah.
But Romania tied the match before halftime in the 35th minute. Bologna scored for Romania, and the match ended as a 1-1 tie.
Yeah. Well, I think as we were saying before the game against Romania, Munoz knew that he had found his group. The atmosphere was good. There wasn't much else to choose from when we were talking about the squad for the tournament, right? There were some good players who were not in the national team's orbit, because in many cases it was because their reputation had been tainted by a poor performance in the World Cup, so they were not coming back. Spain traveled to France with quite a few players suffering from injuries or health problems, right? Amongst them, Santillana, Señor, Marcos, Carrasco, Víctor Muñoz, Gordillo, Julio Alberto, and Mafeda, which was obviously concerning. But for the match against Romania, all of them were back in the fold. The match against the Romanians was considered the most important of the group because being the first, a defeat could have totally changed the team's plans. In addition, Romania was a team with a halo of secrecy, but at the same time generated high expectations. Some of their club teams, such as Dinamo Bucharest or Universitatea Craiova, had reached the semifinals of European competitions in previous years, and the national team had eliminated Italy right from the Euros. They were also a very physical team, well prepared by Mircea Lucescu. And Spain took the lead with a penalty goal by Carrasco. As you said, Senor had missed a couple of them, and Carrasco, I don't think he was the best penalty taker, but he was a very brave player. He sometimes believed too much in his own ability. Carrasco's goal was equalized 15 minutes later by Bologna after a collective mistake by the Spanish defense. And after that, the Romanians were the ones who dominated the game, having more possession and more shots on goal, including an incredible miss by Rednik when he had an empty net. That proved that Muñoz's proverbial good fortune seemed to be in full swing, and this equalizer had to be taken as a good result because Spain had not been brilliant at all.
So on June 17th, they faced their Iberian neighbors, Portugal, at Marseille at Stade Velodrome. For this match, Spain wearing all white. We have Arconada, Urquiaga, he replaced by Senior in the 78th minute, Maceda, Goicoechea, Camacho, Julio Alberto, he'd replaced by Sarabia in the 69th minute, Victor, Gallego, Carrasco, Gordillo, and Santillana. So this time, Portugal took the lead in the 51st minute through Sousa. Spain tied the match in the 72nd minute through Carlos Santillana. So Carrasco takes a corner from the left side, and it was headed by Goicoechea. His header was deflected by the Portuguese defense in the path of Santillana, who struck in. So yes. Second match, second 1-1 tie for Spain.
Yeah, this second game against Portugal was played in Marseille. Spain was playing in white, as you said, in a beautiful kit by Lecoq Sportif, who is going to produce some bangers for the national team during the 80s. Muñoz declared before the game that he was happy to be part of Group 2 after seeing Yugoslavia being demolished by the Danes. Things had changed a lot since the friendlies because Denmark didn't impress in Valencia, and Yugoslavia looked very good in La Línea de la Concepción. But this was tournament football, and momentum was everything. This game against the Portuguese is remembered in Spain as the Iberian Pact because although both teams had some chances, the reality showed that Muñoz and Cabrita were really happy sharing the points and getting to the last game day with everything to play in the group. It was 0-0 at halftime, but Sousa opened the score for Portugal, and the Portuguese had some chances to double their advantage soon after. It was not going to happen because the crossbar denied an effort from Shalana. And 8 minutes after Sousa's goal, in a weird play, as you said, as a result of a corner kick, Santillana leveled the score, dragging Spain into some minutes of attacking opportunities. But with 15 minutes to go, Cabrita decided to go all defensive, and Muñoz accepted it. He accepted the tie. This was in the end another poor game by the Spaniards, who were inferior to the skilled, well-organized Portuguese for most of the match.
So the final match in this group was against the favorites West Germany. And like you said, Spain had not impressed up to that point. and many would have expected West Germany to win this match. And this is the West Germany with the likes of Real Madrid's Uli Stielike, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Schumacher, Briegel, a young Lothar Matthäus, and Rudi Feller, just to name a few.
Yeah.
So for this match at Paris at Parc des Princes, we have Luis Arconada, Goycochea. He'd be replaced in the 26th minute by Salva. I believe he was injured.
Yeah.
Maceda, Camacho, Senor, Gordillo, Victor, Julio Alberto. He'd be replaced by Francisco in the 77th minute. Gallego, Santillana, and Carrasco. So this would be the reference match for Spain as far as these Euros.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So we have to mention that Schumacher had saved Carrasco's penalty kick in the 43rd minute. In addition, the Germans had struck the post on 3 occasions. Hans-Peter Briegel himself twice in the 2nd minute and the 20th minute, and Andy Bremer in the 26th minute.
Yeah.
So, like you said, the luck of Munoz.
Yeah.
So, I believe a scoreless tie would have qualified the West Germans, if I'm not mistaken, because that defeated Romania and tied with Portugal.
Yes, exactly.
However, in the 89th minute, Senor crossed from the right side and Maceda headed, and Schumacher handled the ball, but it was so strong that he could not save it, and it rolled into the net. And this became one of the most historical wins in Spanish football history.
Yeah, because Germany was the bête noire, the boogie team for Spain in that moment. At that moment, they had eliminated the Spaniards in their World Cup, and their clubs usually got really good results against Spanish representatives. They were physically superior, and there was an important inferiority complex throughout Spanish football when comparing both national sides. But Germany had not been brilliant or impressive during the tournament. The team led by Jupp Derval, who was himself a very criticized man, was going through a change of the guard. As you said, they still had veterans from 1980, such as Schumacher or Stilik or Briegel or Rummenigge, right? But also new talents such as Matthäus or Bremer or Föller. They were top of the group at the beginning of match day 3 with 3 points, thanks to their tie against Portugal in a 2-1 victory against the Romanians. And this was Spain's best game thus far. They played with composure, and although Germany had the best chances, Arconada played an unbelievable game, maybe one of the best ever played by a goalkeeper, keeping Rummenigge and company at bay. The game was played at the same time as the Portugal-Romania, and both teams looked content with the draw because the result of the game in Nantes, another draw, benefited them. But in the second half, Germans and Spanish trade blows, not necessarily footballing ones. The game was very physical and violent every now and then. Arconada kept playing out of his mind, and the game changed when Nene scored for Portugal. Spain needed to win, and Munoz's men started to attack, although without much success. But in the end, in the last minute of the game, Maceda, the man for the occasion, scored the decisive goal. Spain had beaten the powerful Germans and was going to the semifinals as a winner of Group 2, which was unbelievable. The victory against the Germans became one of the most famous in the history of the national team, and Maceda's goal became part of Spanish football folklore. Even today, it is surely the most remembered match of this tournament in Spain. The victory helped to shake off the inferiority complex for a while, although it would continue to exist well into the 21st century.
Yes. And I remember at the time I was 11 years old. And again, the result seemed unbelievable because there was the expectation that the West Germans were so much better than Spain,
Yes,
and like you said, it became part of Spanish football history in the succeeding decades.
absolutely.
Yeah. So the semifinal was on June 24th against Denmark at Lyon. And Denmark had impressed in the first round. They had defeated Yugoslavia 5-0. They had come from behind to defeat Belgium 3-2. They were just scoring goals with regularity at this point. So for this match, Spain started with Arconada, Maceda, Camacho, Salva. He replaced by Urquiaga in the 101st minute. Senor, Gordillo, Victor, Julio Alberto be replaced by Sarabia in the 59th minute.
Yeah.
Gallego, Santillana, and Carrasco. So Denmark took the lead in the 6th minute through Soren Lerby. Maceda would come through again, and in the 66th minute, he tied the match. So
Yeah.
on the left side, Gordillo passed to Carrasco in the box. The ball was kicked away from Carrasco in the path of Maceda, who shot in the equalizer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the match ended as a 1-1 tie, went through extra time, and eventually a penalty kick shootout.
Mhm.
And before we get to that, we have to say that Maceda was booked again, and as a result, he would be suspended for the final, no matter the result.
Yeah.
As far as the penalty kick shootout, Spain would win with Elker missing his attempt, and Spain were through to the final, but with the knowledge that they would be without Maceda.
Yes, the Danes were the sensation of the tournament. They play modern, unashamed attacking soccer, right? They had given the host France a lot of trouble and swept Yugoslavia aside before pulling off a spectacular victory against the Belgians. A Danish victory and a rematch in the final against France was expected, but Spain was beginning his trajectory to become the Danes' boogie team for the next decade. Spain, as you said, was without Goicoechea, who was injured against Germany, and Munoz placed Salva alongside Maceda. The match started badly with the Danes living up to the expectations and taking the lead with a great goal by Lerby after 6 minutes. Things were looking bad, and Arconada had to play a match as good as the one against Germany. His duel against LKR will go down in Spanish soccer history. The Danes deserve more, I think, but Spain somewhat kept the 1-0 at halftime, and by the 60th minute, with total domination by Sepp Piontek's man, Munoz introduced Sarabia, a very talented player from Athletic Bilbao, instead of Julio Alberto. Spain still had problems on the right flank, but the team pressed a little bit more and showed a more attacking phase. So 7 minutes later, again, Maceda appeared in the box and scored after a couple of rebounds. After the tie, Spain started to dominate because they had the better physical conditions. So the Danes had to resort to wasting time, gamesmanship, etc. Right? There is still a last chance for the Danish Dynamite, brilliantly saved by Arconada on a shot from Michael Laudrup. And during extra time, Spain was stronger, but still the best chances were Danish, with Arconada saving a header from Berggren, if I'm not mistaken, and a free kick by Alquier with an amazing diving save, only to also deny Laudrup on the rebound with an incredible jump from one side of the goal to the other. Was unbelievable. And in the penalties shootout, it was also very intriguing because Mr. George Corney, the English referee, gave Laudrup 1 second chance to beat Arconada after the initial miss. LTR decisively skied his penalty, and the Spaniards scored all five, with Sarabia netting the decisive one. Spain was was going to the final, but as you said, with several important players missing.
Ahead of this match against France, was there clearly a worry by the Spanish press for the absence of Macedas, most particularly?
Yes, the loss of Maceda, who along with Arconada was the best player in the Spanish national team and had been playing at a very high level for several seasons, was very important. We are talking about one of the best sweepers in the world at that time. Besides, it was not only Maceda, neither was Goicoechea, injured against Germany, nor Gordillo, a key man from his position on the left side of the midfield. Spain lost Maceda's vision with the ball, Goicoechea's man-marking ability, and the win play and work rate from Gordillo. These were dramatic losses, which forced Muñoz to restructure the team, affecting the play style of Spain. Gallego switched to play as a sweeper, something he had already done at Real Madrid, but which deprived the team of his passing range in midfield. In Gallego's place, we had Francisco, who was a good player from Sevilla, good with the ball, but not at the level of the Madrid player. And this basically was an attempt to reinforce the midfield to counter the formidable French quartet in that area.
So the final against France, the hosts, was on June 27th, 1984 at the Paris at Parc des Princes. And this is the full strength French side for this match, in contrast to the first match of the season. So you have the famous Carré Magique in midfield with Platini, Gires, Tigana, and Fernandez.
Yes.
So very strong team. For this match, we have Arconada, Urquiaga, Salva. He replaced by Roberto of Valencia in the 85th minute. This was his first and only match of the season for Roberto.
Yeah.
In the final of a Euro.
What a debut.
Yeah. Gallego, Julio Alberto. He'd be replaced by Sarabia in the 77th minute. Senior, Victor, Camacho, Francisco, Santiana, and Carrasco. This was Salva's sixth and final cap for Spain. All his caps were 1983 and 1984. So this match is famous for Arconada's error when in the 56th minute, Michel Platini takes a free kick. Arconada holds on to it, but it somehow slips under his arm and goes into the net. France took the lead. Just before the end, in the 90th minute, Bruno Bellon chipped over Arconada to give France the Euros title.
Yeah, Spain was not the favorite in this game. That's for sure. The French had such a great team. It was amazing to see them play, especially the quartet in midfield, right, with Fernandez, Gires, Tigana, and Platini. They were obviously a better team than Spain, but probably they played the worst game, their worst game in this
their most cautious game. Yeah,
the most cautious game. Probably they were afraid of making a mistake and losing the title, a title that was for them just to grab at home. Spain played a good game, solid game. They had not big chances, but I think they kept the French at bay very, very well. And in the end, the general feeling was that the defeat was logical. They were playing against a great team who were at their best and playing at home. But it was also a knowledge that Spain had competed very well, and Arconada's misfortune had opened the door to defeat, a door that France did not seem capable of breaking down, and this is important. There was also kind of dissatisfaction with the referee's work, which was considered to be biased towards the home side, although it was seen as something natural, at least at that moment.
It's a shame that a legacy of a great goalkeeper like Arconada is linked to his error in this match against France. How is this error viewed in Spanish football culture and history?
It is true that the first memory that comes to mind when we talk about Arconada is his mistake against Platini's weak free kick. But it is considered a moment of bad luck, which tarnished an impressive tournament by the Basque goalkeeper. Arconada's Euro 84 is on a par with the best performances by a goalkeeper in the history of football. I compare it with that of Oliver Kahn in the 2002 World Cup, in which the goalkeeper took a mediocre Germany to the final, but his mistake in that game condemned his team against a superior opponent. But beyond that mistake, Arconada is one of Spain's more respected and revered goalkeepers, and is a total idol for several generations of Spaniards. There were even a couple of sayings, no pasa nada, tenemos Arconada, and 1-0 y Arconada de portero, right? Something like, nothing bad will happen to us because we have Arconada, and 1-0 because Arconada is our goalie, and that's the logic thing. They are not going to score against us, right?
Spain's performances in the preparatory friendlies certainly did not give an indication that they would be a surprise in these Euros. Was that a general feeling?
Yeah. It was a total surprise. The team was not playing well, and beyond that, as we said at the beginning of the conversation, they didn't have great tools to reach the finals. There weren't so many good players, but in a short tournament, if you have a couple of players who are on a roll, like Arconada and Maceda, and the rest of the team does its job and plays compactly, anything can happen.
And I do remember, like I said, as a young fan, I remember nobody expected Spain to do this well. So, how was the team's progress viewed in the Spanish press?
Oh, it was such a pleasant surprise. It was like a rush of fresh air after so many years of mediocrity. The press, as it always happens, were very critic of the team in the bad moments, especially before the tournament and after the games against Romania and Portugal. But as soon as the team defeated West Germany, the press and the fans jumped into the bandwagon. It was good to feel such optimism after a while, and with the new generation of players making their debuts after the tournament, future looked bright, and then the World Cup ghosts disappeared for a while.
This had been the Spanish national team's greatest success since winning the Euros in 1964. Was there a feeling that internationally Spain was now a force to be reckoned with, or was there a feeling that Spain had surprisingly overachieved?
No, the feeling was undoubtedly of overachieving. Obviously, people like to be optimistic after this result that nobody expected. And as I said, the new generation looked good, and a lot of people thought that we could, build from this success in the Euros. But becoming a force to be reckoned probably was too much. Spain had an inferiority complex in terms of national teams, and I don't think nobody. I don't think anybody was believing, oh, we can win a World Cup now, or we can win a Euros now. I think the idea was more towards, now we can compete again. We are not going to shame the fans. Not going to shame the country again, like we did in the World Cup or even in the Euros in 1980.
In closing, in historical terms, how is this success looked upon by Spanish football historians?
Well, for a long period of time, it was the most important result in terms of national team. Basically, from 64 to 2008, this was like the highest peak. Right now, it's somewhat forgotten because of the excellent team led by Luis Aragonés and Vicente del Bosque. We remember names such as Arconada or Maceda, who played an unbelievable tournament, probably at their peak level of their careers, and that's a lot because they were such great footballers. But overall, this result was relevant because it was sort of a redemption after the terrible result of the World Cup 2 years early. It was also the last tournament of the old guard because just after the Euros, during the qualifying campaign for Mexico '86, Emilio Butragueño and Michel made their debuts, and along them there was a new generation of Spanish talent that was going to change the face of the national team during the rest of the decade.
With that, I'd like to thank you once again for participating in these interviews.
No,
And
my pleasure, always.
yeah, for any questions and comments, you may contact us. You may contact me on my blog and on Facebook under Soccer Nostalgia. On Twitter, I'm at SP1873. Mr. Podwill, who is absent today, you can contact him on his blog, The 1888 Letter, and his Twitter handle is at 1888 Letter. You may also follow the podcast on Spotify, Google, and Apple, all under Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. Please leave a review, rate, and subscribe if you like the podcast. Mr. Vilariño's contact info on Twitter is also listed, as well as the link to his book that I mentioned earlier in the introduction. And again, all this information is listed on the blog and podcast listings. So thank you, Sergio, and hope to
Thank you.
continue these discussions on Spanish football history.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you.